It's Productions.
Yo, what's going on, man? This is your boy Reuben, man. I'm back in the house with the Good Grief podcast, man. And, man, I'm excited. You know, this is our second week shooting and getting prepared, man. We're getting back in the groove of things, man. And I'm hyped today, man. I got a brother in the house who I haven't been knowing that long, but, man, after I talked to him, I feel like I've been knowing him a long time, man. And he's in the house. I'm going to let him introduce himself. But first of all, I just want to give a quick shout out to my engineer in the house, Mr. Kenneth Washington is over there on the wheels of steel. That's what we used to say back in the day, Jaquoi. That's before your time, man. Oh, I said his name. I was going to let him do the introduction. But that's what we used to say back in the day, wheels of steel. He producing. So I just want to give him some mad shout out in the house and Sour Kids Production as they welcome me back in with open arms, man. So we're back at it. And, man, without further ado, man, I got this brother in the house, man. I'm excited about it. Man, listen, he can sing. I told him earlier he was schooling me on how these mics work, and he said, you got the, you can sing directly in, and you don't have to be on the outside. I was like, bro, you talking Spanish to me. I don't even know what you talking about. Then he went on, he trying to explain. I'm like, dude, you can keep on explaining, bro. I'm going to sleep. I don't know. I don't care. I said, you know what? You're not a singer. You're an artist. So I'm going to let him introduce himself. My brother, tell the people who you are, man.
Hi, everybody. I am Jaquoi Griffin, Michigan native, singer, author now, songwriter, artist, worship leader.
And the list is just keep on going. He can do it all, man.
I think that's enough, bro.
Hey, my pastor calls it a utility knife. He's a utility knife. So anything that your ministry needs, he can provide. Even he got a word from the Lord as well. So he can do whatever you need him to do on Sunday mornings. Or it don't matter, Wednesday nights. It don't matter. He'll come and do that. But that's not all we're here to do today, man. We wanted to talk, just give a little backstory, man. I met this brother, was invited over to his church, and he was up ministering, and I was like, man, that brother can blow, man. He can sing, he can minister. Not just sing, man, but you can feel the presence of God when he is up ministering, and so that really kind of touched me, and I was like, man. And then I got a snippet of his story, and a snippet. The word is snippet, right? I don't know what word I just made up, but it's snippet. I got a snippet of his story, and man, I was just like, man, I gotta have a sit down conversation with this brother. And not only do I need to hear his story, but I think the people need to hear his story because it's very inspiring. So I'm done talking on that part. I'm gonna let him tell his own testimony, his own story, and kind of how we got here today. So go ahead, Jaquoi, take it over, my brother.
I'm trying to make this quick. Born and raised in Michigan. Dad was not really present.
All right.
Grandfather was present, summer breaks and things of that sort. So pretty much my mother and my grandmother raised me.
Wow.
The unique story about that is that I was always at my grandmother's house. My earlier parts of years, my mother struggled with drugs. So I'm the oldest grandchild. So I was always at Granny's house. Mom was out living her best life.
Right.
So I grew up around church and quartet music, Baptist, and I'm learning about church, but not necessarily how to live for God. So,
wow. Hold up, bro. If we was at a poetry thing, they do this here. Repeat. Say that again. Say that one more time.
I was learning about church, but not really learning about like the relationship piece of allowing God to be an active role in my life.
Right.
So I go to college and I'm, trying to find my way. I'm learning about quiet time. I'm learning about ministry. I'm learning about singing, about what worship actually is.
Right.
And 10 years go by and I'm going to school, drop out of school.
Right.
I'm serving as one of the worship leaders at my church, Stone's Church, formerly known as Christian Life Center, Pastors Joel and Yvonne Brooks.
That's in Michigan?
Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Okay.
Yep. They allowed me an opportunity to serve in the music department, but also I was learning about my gift and how God wanted to use me.
Right.
So I decided to go to counseling for the first time.
Wow.
Black people, we don't go to counseling.
No, we don't
Black
do
men,
that.
we don't talk about anything.
We don't talk about nothing.
I'm dealing with some things that I need help navigating through.
Right.
So after like the third recommendation of going to counseling, I'm like, okay, I'll go. I thought that the counseling was to help you just to navigate through things, but it was to help you to know how to hear God's voice.
Right.
And also to know why he created you.
Right.
I didn't know this. I feel like I was set up. So I go to counseling and, I'm talking to God and I'm learning to hear God's voice for myself. And I get clarity on why he created me. I say, okay, what's the next step?
Right.
As clear as day, move to Dallas, Texas.
Wow.
Me?
Yeah.
Move where? Across the country? Leave my family? No.
Yeah.
So I struggled with it, but I talked to friends and, just had people praying because I wanted to make sure I was in the will of God.
Right.
And I knew that if I stayed in Michigan, I would be out of God's will.
Right.
Or I can move out to a whole nother place
Right.
and trust him with my whole life.
Right.
I didn't want to do that because I wanted to be in control.
Right.
And on top of that, I have been playing like the role of God in my family's lives.
Wow.
So they need something, they call me, I'm
Right.
there.
Right.
Even if that means I'm struggling, I'm going to make sure that those needs are met. So
Right.
God, I believe, moved me away
Right.
to kind of help me to take my hands off of my family's life.
Wow. Well,
So I moved in 2015. My grandmother dies in 2017 of like natural causes.
Right.
So I'm spiraling down. I have a brother who was in prison at the time.
Okay.
Baby sister got shot in 2013.
Wow.
So there were some events that happened where it's
Yeah.
like, God, I need to stay close to my family.
Right.
So I trusted him to move down to Texas. Grandmother died in 2017. And this is around the time where my mother finds out that she has breast cancer.
Wow.
The first time.
Wow.
So she tells us, I have breast cancer, but it's cleared up. I don't have it anymore.
Right.
So we're like, okay, And grandmother had breast cancer for like 30 plus years. No chemo, no radiation.
Wow.
God healed her.
Wow.
Sustained her.
Wow.
So my mother took that route, but her father had 2 different types of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And she saw how he responded to the chemo, the radiation. She didn't want to take that route. And he's
Right.
still living.
Right.
So she had this choice to make. So she gets it a second time, but my mother, very stubborn, very strong-willed,
Right.
I had a dream that either she was dying or about to die, and
Right.
only told one of the younger siblings. So in the dream, I'm tripping, like, why didn't she tell me I'm the oldest? I'm the more responsible. I go down the list.
Right.
And so I was able to go home for 2 weeks to lay eyes on her.
Right.
And if you know my mother, you know that she's not weak at all.
Right.
So to see her in the state that she was in
Right.
was heartbreaking.
Right.
So it's like God was preparing me all along the way. Fast forward 2020, I think it was March, her birthday, March 5th.
Right.
We had to force her to go to the doctor because by this point, the cancer was so bad to where it was odorous. There was discharge.
Oh, wow.
Low blood count.
Right.
Her health was declining.
Right.
And she didn't tell anybody even to this point.
Right.
So I'm having to God is literally showing me what's happening in dreams. So I'm able to talk to my brother who's in prison. He's the second oldest.
Right.
And they're like, you shouldn't tell him that. If something would have happened to her and he's locked up and I knew about it, I wouldn't be okay.
Yeah.
So I'm telling him everything. I'm telling the other siblings, Mama's not doing well. She says she's doing well, but she's not.
Right.
So she died a month and some change later.
Wow.
And I struggled with everything because it's like, God, the drugs could have taken her out.
Right.
The multiple incidents in the streets could have taken her out, but you allowed cancer to take her out after you told me to move.
Right.
And I'm singing about trusting you. I'm singing about, you being healer, and you could have healed her. She died.
Right.
She was trusting you to heal her and you didn't.
Right.
So I'm mad at my mother because I feel like she made decisions that were not best for her.
Right.
And I'm upset with God because I feel like he didn't intervene.
Right. Wow.
As a Christian, as a worship leader.
Right. While you're up worshiping, leading worship, ushering others into the spirit.
Or just
of
believe God. Trust God.
Yeah.
And God, this is what you have to offer?
Right.
So I'm hurting.
Right.
And for months I did not sing. And there were people who called to ask me to sing, but it's like my mother's dead.
Yeah.
Like she just died.
Right. And you're like, what do you want me to exactly sing about?
You're not checking on me though.
Right.
That's the thing. This is a business transaction.
Right.
I get it, but you know that my mother died. You liked the post. You commented on the post.
Right.
Hey, Jaquoi, are you okay? Are you still taking the events right now?
Right.
None of that. Just, can you sing here?
Right.
Lord, help me with my words.
Right.
There's some things I want to say.
Right.
That would not be a good representation of you.
Right.
So all that to say, she eventually dies. And I was home for 2 months, just trying to process everything. None of her affairs were in order. It was chaotic, man. It was chaotic.
Right.
But I ended up going back through counseling to get clarity on why she died and just to get some type of resolve so that I can start to heal.
Right.
In the midst of that, I was home. I finished the last project, Rest in God, which you can hear almost every emotion in that project.
Right.
The anger, the bitterness, the frustration, the tiredness, the physical tiredness. I'm vocally tired. I'm drained. I'm not getting sleep. Because back home, I'm taking care of the family.
Right.
Dad is doing his own thing.
Right.
Granddad is up in age now. Him and my grandmother, I think they're in their 70s at this point, but they can't see it. They're older.
Right.
So, this falls on me to make sure that they're good. So my grieving process didn't start until I got back to Texas.
Right.
2 months after my mom died.
I want to back up just a little bit because you said something that doesn't happen. I think we talked about it in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It says that you went back to counseling.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to speak to that and speak to what made you make that decision to go back to counseling. I know you touched a little bit on it, but I want to get a little deeper dive in. Where did you make that transition? Because you said something that's, man, I say this all the time. When someone loses someone and you're really trusting God for healing, or you're trusting, God to fix this situation, and it doesn't happen that way, or you're, in this, deep grief moment, and you're trying your best to dig your way out, people can be real insensitive, right?
Absolutely.
So you do have a choice. You have a choice to either go off or go to counseling. And it sounds like you say, you know what? Let me go to counseling. So I want you to speak to that. I want you to speak to what was that determining moment when you just like, you know what? I got to get some counseling ASAP. So what triggered you in that moment to do that?
I know that it was just realizing how effective it had been before grief was even a thing.
Wow.
So the first time I went, it's like I'm actually able to forgive my father, who's
Right.
still living.
Right.
Because he wasn't, he gave us what he knew to give. So if counseling can help me with this, I've been carrying this for years.
Right.
Then absolutely, then it's effective.
Right.
And there were other things. We're working through everything, like all my frustrations, all my irritation, everything.
Right.
And I left that first counseling. That was like maybe a year and a half, 2 years of counseling nonstop.
Right.
I was in such a peaceful state of mind where it's like, I've forgiven my father. Him and I are good. Life is good.
Right.
So the second time, I was spiraling downward.
Right.
And I've worked at a psych ward before.
Okay.
So I've seen that, that side. I'm like, if I don't get help,
this is where
I'm gonna be on the other side.
Yeah.
as a patient. So I thought about counseling, and the beautiful thing about my counselor is that she's some people say that they're prophetic. And some people are prophetic, but there are some people who literally walk with God every moment of the day.
Right.
Her level of relationship with God is rare.
Right.
When I say, like, she'll take days and weeks to just go and spend time with God.
Wow.
No agenda.
Yeah.
God, I don't want you. I'm you and I are communing.
Right.
So seeing that relationship and seeing how effective she is in counseling.
Right.
She hears from God. So everything, like, even if I were come to her with a lie,
right,
she can hear right through it.
Right.
And it's like, I need somebody like that, because
Right.
at times I'm guarded, man. Like,
Right.
it's like, I know how to keep you at a distance.
Right.
But she's like, no, the Holy Spirit is telling me X, Y, Z. Or she'll ask the right question.
Right.
It's like, dang it. Like, I didn't come here for this, man.
Right.
But she's that effective. So when I was thinking about grief, I'm like, if I don't get help, this is going to be bad.
Right.
So counseling came up, and I thought about it, how effective. So I just reached out to her, like, I need counseling again. So I was in that counseling. I was in, I think, Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship has a counseling group.
Yes.
Grief Share. I was in that. And then I was also doing counseling through my job. I'm like, I need something.
Right.
Because my mom and my grandmother are gone.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hurt, bro. I'm hurting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I still got to go to work.
Yeah.
I still got to, do X, Y, Z. So just how effective she was the first time.
Okay. Yeah. How long did it take you to actually be able to get back and minister?
So that was April. So from what? April through maybe November.
Wow.
And I wanted to take longer.
Right.
And the only reason I came back, because I was in Michigan for 2 months. The only reason I came back at the 2-month mark, actually my grandmother's sister, who she sang in the quartet with, died after we had buried my mom.
Wow.
So while I'm still in Michigan, another relative died. So I got a call to do a grassroots videotaping with Kirk Franklin.
Okay.
So that, was the only reason I came back.
Right.
And so that kind of got me in the groove of it. But after that, I'm like, I still don't want to sing. I had no desire. I would tune into church, but it wasn't until I think the Faith Church reached out, or Calvin said, like, they were looking for a worship leader. So I'm like, it's been a few months. I go one Sunday and see how it goes. Just one Sunday.
Yeah, just check it out.
And that wasn't again until, like, I think the end of December. So like the beginning of 2021 is when I started more regularly.
Right.
But I just needed the time to, and I could have kept going in ministry, but it's like, I can't pour this out on y'all, because I'm not hearing from God. I'm not talking to God.
Right.
I have nothing to say to God.
Stop. You said so, and I'm sitting here thinking through my own journey, right? Because you get to a place where you're just frustrated with God, right? And you said, I'm not hearing from God, but I ain't even talking to him. And it's funny that you say that, because the reason why I ask you how long did it take you to go back to ministering is because even in my own space, man, I was like, man, I'm done with church. I'm cool. I'm finna kick it. I went another way. I was like, I'm finna hang out. I'm finna kick it. I'm finna do whatever I want to do, because I just can't, you were supposed to heal her.
Yep. Yep.
You was supposed to fix this, man.
Yep.
We had a pact, man. You know,
Yep.
you were supposed to make this thing right. We supposed to ride off into the sunset, you know, obviously with my wife Pat. You were supposed to make this thing go. You were supposed to make this be what we set out and planned for it to be. And so since you didn't do that, you know, I don't feel comfortable talking to you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've had these same type of conversations with some super holy, sanctified folk, and they were like, "You can't question God. You don't do this." So, well, I did.
Mm-hmm. And I support it.
Right.
I support it.
Yeah, I did question. You know, even though I knew, I
Mm-hmm.
got enough word in me to know. I get it. I'm like, but I did question it, and I like your transparency in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like, look, you know, y'all are asking me to come and minister to something that I'm struggling to. I don't want to say believe, because I don't think belief leaves, but I think your trust leaves. It's just like,
Absolutely.
man, you let me down.
Yep.
You know, you weren't supposed to let me down. I'm still with you. You know, I'm still with you, but right now I'm gonna be with you from a distance because I feel like you let me down. You know, but what I love most about God, and this is for someone who may be even in this space right now today, and you're listening to this podcast and you're hearing this authenticity and transparency, you know, from Jaquoi. And man, it's okay where you are.
Yep.
It's okay for that space that you're in, because true deliverance only happens when there's an epiphany of, okay, here's where I am. Okay, now I got to get out.
Yep.
And you can't get out of something when you don't know where you are. When we did the podcast last week, my daughter said something, man, that has messed me up. And she said she didn't even know what was missing until she got it back. I said, what you say? She said, I didn't know what was missing.
Wow.
I didn't even know that I had something missing until I got it back. I didn't know peace was missing until I got it back. And so many times people, when we're experiencing grief or we're dealing in grief, we start spiraling out of control. But when you think of a spiral, when you think of it, you think it's quick. But the way it happens is just one instance. It's one situation. Next thing you know, it's another situation. All of a sudden, before you know it, you open your eyes and you're like, whoa, how did I get here?
Can't even really trace it.
Right. But check this out. It was so much dysfunction that it felt peaceful.
That part.
And then when you, like she said, Daddy, I didn't know I was missing something until I got it back. So I didn't even know I was missing peace until all of a sudden I was able to get peace back. I'm like, hold up, this feels different than where I've been. So the word, man, that's man, you blessing me, dog. Amen. You blessing me, man. And and we're gonna get to some more stuff here, but I don't want to move too fast past this. What words could you give to someone specifically who may be in this grief, we'll say this grief black hole, where they're trying their best, you know, they believe God, they're God-fearing people, they trust God, but something has happened and they're trying their best. You know, I look at Job, right? Yep. You know, the Bible tells us, like, Job was chilling, man. Job was good. Then all of a sudden, you know, I did a sermon one time. It was called "I'm Broken, but I'm Still Believing," talking about Job. And Job was sitting there, he was chilling, man. All of a sudden, and you see that, what was that, The Wiz with Maybelline? He was like, "Don't nobody bring me no bad news." Say Job was sitting there chilling. Somebody brought him some bad news, and before that person can leave, somebody else was coming up giving him bad news. And Job even at one point questioned God. Job was like, "Dude, why did you even make me born? Why did you even bring me here to do this to me?" Right? So there's precedent in the Bible for questioning.
Absolutely.
There's precedent.
Absolutely.
You know, I have to get my super saved saints who want to be like, okay, well, you sit in my seat. you sit in my seat and tell me how it feel. But I really want you to speak specifically to that person who may be, thank you, God, who may be in ministry, who may have been effective in ministry, but deep down, they know that there's something missing, and they're probably ministering from a place of pain that they can't explain. And so what they're doing, you got on camouflage pants, right? I like your little camouflage bag over there.
Thank you, sir.
I said this one Sunday. I had to go speak at a men's conference. It was a bunch of guys speaking or whatever. It wasn't like, it was real cool. And we had on camouflage. And so it was nice, man. It was a nice program. The word was thick in the house. It was cool. And so I was like, man, when I get to church Sunday, I'm gonna ask my pastor, can we wear camouflage one Sunday?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in the church. And it was like the Holy Spirit tapped me on the shoulders, like, Reuben, what are you talking about? I was like, what do you mean, Holy Spirit? I said camouflage. And the Holy Spirit said, well, you're already wearing camouflage every Sunday.
Uh-oh.
You camouflaging who you are.
Yep.
You camouflaging what you're going through.
Yep.
So I know I said a lot, but speak to that person who is up ministering in their brokenness. And what would you tell them so that, like you said, they don't bleed out on somebody else? What words of encouragement could you give them to help them move forward? And they're ministering. We're speaking specifically to a person who is ministering and they're broken right now.
First, I don't know where this comes from, but the fact that the statement that we cannot question God, I disagree with it.
Right.
God is about relationship.
Right.
For me, when I went to God with my questions, and I went to him respectfully.
Right.
Just like, you have kids, you want them to come and talk to you, but you want them to be respectful.
Right.
So that was the posture of the heart. So yes, I do support questioning God. There's no question that he will run from or that he cannot answer.
Right.
None. He's almighty. He's all powerful. So don't shy away from God with your questions. Go to him with those questions and sit and listen until he answers.
Yes.
That's how you are. That's how you learn. That's how you come to be transformed, to be renewed in the mind from him talking to you and vice versa.
Yeah.
Prayer is not just us talking to him. It's him also talking to us.
Yes.
So go to God with your questions, journal what you're hearing, and don't let up until your spirit is at peace that he's answered you. Might not be what you want,
right?
But he's at least giving you a solid answer that you can take and run with.
Yeah.
When it comes to ministering, I think sometimes we think that we have to be perfect or we have to be in this place where we're flawless.
Right.
God is not looking for a flawless person. He's looking for a submitted person.
Wow.
So
say that again.
He's looking for
somebody that
will submit, that will say, hey, yes, God, you can use me.
Yeah.
Here are my flaws. Here are my issues.
Right.
But you can still use me.
Yeah.
There's things that we go through that will keep us at his feet.
Right.
So I come to God with those things.
Yeah.
Like my grief, God, I'm sure I don't have nothing to pour out this week.
Right.
And it's okay to be in a place where you sit down for a Sunday or you sit down for a couple of weeks to get yourself together. Now, if you can do that without sitting down,
right,
absolutely. But grief is something where if you don't address it,
right,
it'll come back and bite you in the butt.
Yeah.
So take the time you need. If you signed up for a ministry opportunity and there's somebody that can fill in for you while you deal with whatever, use that time. Take a Sunday off, take a week off, do what you need to do to make sure that you're well. But my pastor back home always says you cannot take people where you have not been.
Wow.
So if I'm remaining in this place of brokenness,
wow,
I'm only ministering to that level.
Wow.
I haven't experienced his healing. So when I sit down and say, okay, God, this is what I'm going through, and you begin to speak to me and I begin to get healed.
Yeah.
Now I'm ministering not only further than I'm taking you to a place where I've been,
yeah,
but I'm pressing even further because God has done something here and I know he can do that for you. So now I become your intercessor in a sense.
Yeah.
Because God did this for me this month. So let me press. If there's somebody in this atmosphere that needs God, let us get to that point to where the atmosphere is set for them to receive.
Yeah.
So we have a responsibility, but if we aren't well, we can't take care of the next person.
Yes.
And it's okay to hurt. It's okay to be in a place where you're struggling with whatever. It's okay.
Right.
It's just not okay to stay there.
Right.
So do what you got to do to get up, to be well, and to do what you're supposed to do.
Wow, man, that's rich. That's rich. So I want you to say that again, and I want you to bookmark that, Mr. Kenneth. He said, "You cannot." Say it again. You cannot take someone somewhere you have not been.
You cannot take people where you have not been.
You cannot take people where you have not been.
Yep, and that's from Pastor Brooks. Or like if God does something in your life, it's illegal to not believe him to do that same thing again.
It's illegal.
So if he heals you of cancer, you can't go back and not believe if something else comes up.
Right.
It's like he's done this before.
Yeah.
So he has you. So if he heals you, now you have that authority to access that same level of healing for the next person.
Yeah.
Pastor Brooks, man, he's a beast. He's a beast.
Now he's in Michigan, right? How far is that from Detroit?
2.5
Oh, you
hours.
said it's a ways away. Yeah. Okay, so I won't be. I'm be in Detroit in a couple of weeks, so I was gonna try to look him up, but that's gonna be a little ways. Oh, okay. Yeah, you know what? I forget.
Practical wisdom, man.
I forgot, man. You know,
all good.
we're in the information age.
It's all good. We got you.
Everything's at our fingertips. You know, I done learned a lot today, man. I learned how these microphones work, and I can Google some folk, right?
Yeah, man.
Well, listen, man, I think that's some good stuff, man. I pray that someone listening to this podcast, man, you're able to pull from this and basically be able to pull some strength, you know, that you may have been struggling with some things, some areas in your life as it relates to grief where you may have been struggling, that you're able to listen to this and hear from a brother who has, and I'm going to go ahead and prophetically say it, made it on the other side.
Amen.
You know, he's did the work. At my job, you know, they say you got to do the work, right? You know, and my shirt says trust the process. So not only do you trust the process, but you got to do the work.
You have to.
And so, man, I commend you, my brother, for doing the work. And God has truly and richly blessed you for doing the work. But we're going to transition a little bit because I see you brought something with you. I see it over there. It's a little green thing. What is that, man? Hold it up for the camera so we can see it.
Like my Zoom in?
Yeah. So he got his book in the house. So we want to talk a little bit about that. It says Rest in God.
Yes.
And just tell me a little bit about that book, man, and what inspired you to write it and how long has it been out? As well as where can we go get it? Because I thought maybe that was my copy or something that you was going to autograph it for me. You know, I'm just saying.
I got you. So I started off singing. And so people know me as a singer, artist, or whatever. And as the last concert I did in 2021, there was a portion where like I did an interview. Well, I did the interview before the concert. And we showed portions of the interview where I'm just talking about my story. And the feedback from that night still sticks.
Wow.
There were grown men in there crying because they had lost a parent and they didn't know how to navigate through it.
Wow.
And something I said in a video or something I sung encouraged them to keep pushing, to keep healing.
Right.
There was another lady who I had never met. She was like, she had never met me, but she was so richly blessed. Almost every testimony from that night was that everybody got what they needed.
Wow.
And that was my prayers, like, God, we're celebrating the music, but let you be glorified.
Right.
Let people get what they need. Let the spirit just move in an organic way. We're not pushing. It's not forceful. Just do what you do. And I left it at that.
Right.
And so, coming out of that, I was thinking about like the next project. And long and short is I was spending time with God at a lake or nature trail.
Okay.
And I felt like I was trying to sleep in that Saturday morning. God would not let me sleep in. So now I'm irritated. There's another word I want to use there. Irritated.
Yeah.
And so I go to the trail and I walk the trail for like 45 minutes and I sit down to read a book, Fathered by God.
Right.
And so as I'm listening, I'm like, God, why could I not just have read this at the crib? So I had misinterpreted what I heard. I thought he was telling me to take a book to the trail to read, but he was telling me to write a book.
Wow.
So I'm like, wait.
Wow.
All of my list of goals, this is not a goal.
Right.
I've never said I wanted to be an author, ever.
Right.
So it's like, I had a list of excuses. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to talk about. I don't want to do this. Give this to a pastor who knows more Bible. I don't know enough Bible. What am I going to think? Just give it to somebody else.
Right.
For a whole year, I tried to shake it. So this last year, he made it very clear, just get it done by the end of the year.
Right.
And even to be perfectly honest, I can't even say that I see the real fruit of why this is in birth.
Right.
But it was obedience.
Right.
And so I got it done. And it's continuing that journey. Actually, I'm talking more about my journey with grief.
Right.
I dive into my relationship with my father.
Right.
I dive into the transition here, just areas of my life and times of my life where I've had to trust God.
Right.
To do what only he can do.
Right.
So moving here was an act of faith.
Right.
Navigating through grief was an act of faith.
Right.
Having an inconsistent father was an act of faith. So it's sharing more of like how God has kept me through all of this, but also how he continues to help me and charge me to trust him with everything.
Right.
So this is it's more of a testimony, but it's not the testimony that's boring. You're like, okay, I've learned a lot about Jaquoi.
Right.
It's that testimony that says, okay, this brother has gone through this, and this is how he got through it.
Right.
And there's sections in the book where there's questions because I want this to draw people back to God or closer to God.
Right.
Yes, it's me. It's, celebrate me absolutely.
Right.
But at the end of this book,
right.
Hopefully God would have spoken to you about your relationship with him to draw you closer.
Right.
So there's nuggets in there, man, that I think will help anybody who's dealt with grief, and not just losing a loved one, but maybe loss of a friendship, loss of a job, loss of a career. We've all struggled with some type of grief.
Right.
So if you can read this and get encouraged, then my job is done. So
right.
yeah, God instructed me to write that, and I'm walking this thing out, man.
That's what's up, man. Well, cool. So I know you got the book out
Mhm.
and you got some music projects out as well.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that, those music projects that you have out. I actually heard one of the songs and I was like, man, who's that? Okay. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't have it with me, of course, but I did actually hear one of the songs, man. It's
Cool.
fire, bro. So
Cool. Thank you, man.
but tell us about those music projects that you have out. We want to definitely promote those. And if you're listening, man, Google this brother.
Yes.
And where can we get that book? How can they get the book?
Everything is on my website. So www.Jaquoi Griffin. You got to spell it right though. JAQUOIGRIFFIN.com.
Get the book.
Yes.
And the projects, man. And also, if you need a guest worship minister for your ministry, whether it be a special event or you just need somebody to come in on a Sunday morning, listen, you don't have to go pay all that big money to go get these national artists. We got some artists right here in town that will come and usher in the spirit of the Lord into your worship experience. And I'm telling you, I can vouch because I've seen this brother when he is serving. Man, it's fire. And so please, can they book you on the website as well? All right, please. We want to get some bookings for this brother and let him come. And he's reasonable. He ain't free. Let me say that again.
Hey, man, gotta eat.
All right.
Bills got to be paid.
The workman's worthy of his honor. He ain't free, but he will come to you. Matter of fact, Dr. C.C. McNeely, church I used to play for a long time ago, the late Dr. C.C. McNeely used to say, salvation ain't free. No, he said salvation is free, but it ain't cheap. It's gonna cost you your life.
I like it.
So please be a blessing to this brother. If you're looking to enhance your ministry, or if you just want him to come in and work with your praise team and kind of get them to a certain level, if there's anything, please bring him in. You are available for workshops. Am I understanding of that?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Absolutely. So please, we want to uplift this brother, and that's it, man. I want to thank you for stopping by, man, and I appreciate it. Yeah, man. When I heard you, I was like, man, there's something different about this cat. And then when I heard your story, bro, I was like, you know what? Man, people need to hear this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know you have avenues that you have with your book, with your music and your testimony. But I do have one request.
Mm-hmm.
At your next concert, I want to be the MC.
Say less.
I'm just saying, man.
Less.
I'm good. Hey, Kenna, tell me I'm good off the dome, dog. Now off the dome, bro. It's a wrap.
Done.
I got you, man. I'm gonna get them hype, baby.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, man. Thank you for stopping by. I pray that this has been enlightening for you as well as it has been for me.
Yep.
And man, we got to do this again sometime.
Let me know.
All right, bro. Hey, we're signing out, man. Thank you to my guest Jaquoi for sitting in with us, and man, we'll catch you next time. Peace.